life in 3 dimensions got me bent and got me twisting. I know I done said a lot, but I should probably stop pretending. I don't really hold the key and I can't really push a button. I just step up to the mic and try my very best to bust it, but I ran out of breath. It's tight in my chest, my feet just might fail. I can't stand up.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Racially Speaking. It's me, David Phipps, your host. Before we jump in, of course, as always, please like, share, and subscribe. Follow the show wherever you're listening right now. You can listen and watch at YouTube and Spotify, and you can listen at Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, iHeartRadio, all those good things. Please like, share, and subscribe to all those places for me. It really helps me out. And of course, for as little as $1, $3, or $5 a month, you can become a patron at patreon.com/racially speaking, and you can support financially the work that I do by putting out this podcast. Please and thank you. And speaking of the Patreon, preceding this episode right now, earlier this week, I of course released a 15 or so minute Patreon video, kind of entering into this full episode I'm about to do. That video was more a gut reaction to all of the talk and discourse around the men's and women's gold medal games for hockey. And then, of course, the backlash the men's team got from their conversation and buddy-buddiness to the president on speakerphone. Just go listen to that episode. It's for free on the Patreon page right now. And of course, please consider becoming a full-time Patreon for as little as $1, $3, or $5 a month. That is on patreon.com/racially speaking right now. Okay, as you may have guessed, this is all about the Olympics, guys. Maybe not all about the Olympics. It's going to be DEI heavy. It's going to be Olympic heavy, but mainly it's going to be about, of course, race and my first love, ice hockey. Let me jump right into this. That might be surprising to some of you guys that I grew up playing ice hockey and that I have a lot to say about ice hockey. I said this on the Patreon video, but ice hockey and ice hockey culture was really who I was for most of my life growing up. It's what I found, for better and for worse, my identity in. I played travel hockey, so it was 5 days a week and felt like more sometimes. My parents can attest to that. We traveled on weekends, played games. So I was at least good enough to play at the highest level where I'm from, down in the 757 area of Virginia. So you might hear me say, wait, you played ice hockey? That is not a very diverse sport. And of course, you are correct. I think out of the 4 major sports, as I said on the Patreon video, it is by far, like night and day, the least diverse. And that culture is, of course, a lot of what formed a lot of my views on race, for better and for worse, as I grew up in a very not diverse culture, playing ice hockey, very socioeconomically privileged sport and culture. I was blessed to be able to play that. My parents could afford me playing that, and it was absolutely a huge blessing. I say all that just so you guys don't feel like I'm jumping into something that I have no idea about that I'm talking about. I do. I understand hockey. I, again, grew up with it. I don't follow it quite as much now, but if you were with me and watching me watch these 2 gold medal Olympic hockey games this past week, which none of you were except my family, you would know that it is still inside of me, maybe a little too much. First, let's start positive. Shout out to the men's and women's ice hockey teams for just an amazing finish. 2 overtime victories over Canada. Now, a little bit on Canada, guys. Now, I know you guys think I'm perfect when it comes to being open-minded to all cultures, when it comes to having figured out this racial justice thing by doing this podcast. Empathy, sympathy, accepting of all, viewing everybody equally, loving everybody for who they are. I know you think I'm perfect at that and I've got to figure it out. But guys, I'm not. I'm not perfect. There's a culture that I have detested from a very, very young age, and that is Canadian hockey. Look, if you know, you know. Canadian hockey. Look, there's a lot of personal stuff into this, guys, and it is my experience. I'm an individual. It is my individual experience that Canadian hockey players were always just the most arrogant players I played against. They would come down, beat up on us, and tell us about it. They would uh, talk the most trash. They were the fastest, the most intimidating. That's really the first time I ever get hurt in a game is somebody cheap shotting me from behind, and I think he even might have gotten ejected, so it was actually a cheap shot, but I bruised my ribs. I just have all these bad memories from Canadian hockey. Of course, I'm half joking, guys. But anyway, there's always a chip on USA versus Canadian hockey. And so that's a real thing. If you guys didn't realize that, except from watching the Olympics, it's a real thing. It's ingrained into you, at least when I was growing up playing hockey, that's just a thing. So, all right, let me get that out of the way. Let me start with the women. Okay. The women's hockey team looked unbelievable. If there's any doubt in anybody that I know we're stuck in this circular argument of are women and men equal at sports, who's better, could women play in the NBA or the NHL type thing, all that stuff. That's not what I'm gonna litigate here. What I am gonna say is the women's tournament, the women's hockey, I mean this wholeheartedly, like thoroughly enjoyed watching our women's games in that championship game more than the men's game. That's not a knock on the men's game. It was just that's how good it was, and I, it was incredible. I haven't watched that much women's hockey because there's not as many women that played growing up, and there's only just now started a women's professional league. They're so fast, so talented, and they look incredibly athletic. They look like pros. It looked like I truly felt like I was watching the caliber of an NHL game. They're sharp passers. They're quick. Um, they know what they're doing. I feel like watching them was similar to me watching the WNBA, as it was relatable, and since they are just so fundamentally good. It's not so much about strength and hitting in full contact. It's just they're just very, very good at what they do. The USA women's team dominated the entire tournament. I think they outscored their opponents 31-1 until the championship game, where of course they had to go into OT and get that sudden death victory. I could talk about them for a long time, but let me talk about Layla Edwards as it relates to racially speaking, to racial issues. So Layla Edwards, if you guys didn't know, was the first Black woman to ever play on the women's Olympic team. So that's what you've seen probably on Instagram feeds and in the headlines and whatnot, and that's great. I think it should be noticed. She should be touted as the first, and that it is a really, really big deal. Of course, I believe that is a really big deal. With the backdrop of all the discourse going around, however, on, well, isn't every time, a Black or brown person who is the first nowadays to do something just a DEI hire or DEI so and so? I think that's whether you believe that's all it is or not. That conversation is in the back of all of our minds right now, and that's unfortunate in my opinion, because the only people that suffer from that are Black and brown people. So let me tell you a little bit about Layla Edwards, guys. If maybe you don't think that about her, but it's creeping in the back of your mind a little bit. Let me just tell you about Layla Edwards, 6'1", Layla Edwards from Cleveland, Ohio, a forward for the Wisconsin Badgers. She is the first African American woman to play for the women's ice hockey team. And not only is she that, But she scored in the 2024-2025 season, she scored 71 points, 35 goals. So roughly 35 goals, 36 assists, doing the math. And let me ask you real quick, reflect. Does that sound like a lot, especially those of you who don't know hockey? And this is in 41 games. Okay, 41 games, 71 points. Okay, let me sit with that for a second. Think about if you think that's a lot. Okay, was that enough time? Not only is that a lot, that was the league leading. She was the leading scorer in the entire NCAA for the Wisconsin Badgers last year. She's won 2 national championships in just a full list of all these accomplishments. So, and she was a forward. And so I'm going to put on my hockey nerd glasses for a second and just say she was a forward. So led the entire NCAA in scoring, had 71 points in total in a season, has won multiple national championships. And then if you watch the Olympics, she rotated between being a defenseman and offensive player. So she quite literally, aside from being a goalie, was doing it all for Team USA. She's literally one of the best players. She's on the ice for power play. She's on the ice for shorthanded to kill off penalties. She does it all. And so I say all that because we got to talk about the DEI discourse, guys. This isn't DEI. This is giving people that are qualified, maybe even more qualified than white people in this case, historically, the same equal opportunity that white people, that everyone has had. It's giving a level playing field from the get-go. Okay, it's not, oh, I see a black hockey player, they make the team. That's not what happened here. And if it is, they really lucked out because just for some reason they got the best score in the entire NCAA. Okay. Shout out to the women's team, man. They looked great, and I'm also just gonna keep it 100. Layla Edwards, she was one of the best players on the team from the beginning. Eye test and somebody that grew up playing hockey, I will say this. At times she looked a hair slow, including the goal that Canada scored. She was a little slow to get back, and I would kind of blame her for that goal, but she made up for it because she got the assist that tied the game to go into overtime. And she looked phenomenal. The girls looked phenomenal. Just shout out to Olympic women's hockey. Congratulations. Phenomenal job. Let me move off that a little bit and give a little bit of more of a personal take into my experience playing hockey as far as diversity goes. I said this in the Patreon video, but I don't even need all 5 of my fingers on one hand to count how many people of color I played with. I was one of the only ones that was not white my entire career. I played my entire life post-college. Okay. I want to say this also as it relates to what I'm assuming a little bit Layla Edwards' experience was. I played against a handful of black players growing up, and some of this is even going to sound a little bit problematic, but it's what has shaped me, and it's part of how I've interrogated my own biases and wrong beliefs growing up. But me and my teammates growing up sort of even had a reverse racist running perspective and joke whenever we saw black players on the other team. And it literally was, whenever there's a black player, they're almost always the best player. That sounds kind of insensitive to say, but hear me out. It was kind of true, and I didn't have the wherewithal and wisdom to understand what I was observing, what I was saying, but it typically was always true. I can remember it vividly. We would play teams with often from like New York and New Jersey, or not. We wouldn't play teams often from there, but when we did, they would sometimes have a black player, and that player was always one of the hardest hitting players, the fastest players, and scored the most goals. It was just true. And I say all that because that was just, as in retrospect, when I think back and look back, I think back to my own experience and their experience hearing and navigating all of the racism, the racial slurs we all heard. I heard as an Asian guy. These black players heard from my own teammates sometimes, racial slurs out there on the ice. All of this, and knowing that it made no sense when it came to playing the sport. It meant actually a lot to me seeing somebody like Layla Edwards make this women's ice hockey team, because I'm thinking, man, I know and I've seen what somebody like them has endured. It's completely unfair, right? If it was just all about the sport, which a lot of people just want to say, hey, can't we just keep it about the sports, keep politics out of it? Yes, we wish we could, but unfortunately, you guys won't let us in a lot of cases. But no, I know what Layla Edwards had to go through to do that. And I think it's a lot of times what the black community says about black women. Like, they are often the ones that excel and also carry everything else on their back. So not only does she excel and was quite literally maybe the best player in the country, but she's also the first and black woman to make this team and to be in a lot of positions she's in. And she has spoken a lot about that and has willingly embraced, she doesn't have to, but has willingly embraced this this narrative and this baggage, because she knows there's other girls that look up to her, and that it's actually an injustice that she is the first one in so many of these positions. So, man, shout out to Layla Edwards, shout out to the women's hockey team. Quick detour, shout out to Erin Jackson, the speed skater for the U.S. Women's team, who, of course, is the first, I think, black woman to carry the flag during the open ceremonies for us. That unfortunately could be looked at as a DEI position or higher. I didn't see people saying that. I'm sure there were people saying that. And again, I think that argument is in the back of our mind sometimes. But Erin Jackson was already a gold medal Olympian, and she, I think, won another gold medal. So this isn't DEI. This is people getting opportunity when they should have had it a long time ago. So, man, shout out to them. I saw so many stories like this. I'm just like, so much beauty in so many black and brown Americans getting these chances. Shout out to the skiers, the snowboarders like Chloe Kim. Some of the skiers, their names escaped me, but that spoke out about what it looked like for them to play for our country, even if they, are ashamed of some of the things this administration is representing our country doing. Shout out to them. Shout out to anybody that did some protesting in the midst of focusing on their events and sports. All right. Quick reminder again, please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. And of course, check out patreon.com/racially speaking to support the show. Let me move over to this. The men's hockey team, full of NHL players, full of millionaires, right? NHL players, just won in the same way the women did against Canada. Big upset, got thoroughly outplayed, but still won in overtime and won the gold medal, first since the 1980 Miracle Olympic team. Some similarities are they got thoroughly outplayed by a much better team, but their goalie, just shout out to Hellebuck, just put them on their back and saved every single shot. And it was just absolutely insane, absolutely incredible. So they win. And I wish it didn't have to turn to this so quickly, because they won and then they lost real quick. The USA men's team won. And what proceeded to follow that, seemingly within hours, is just social media tearing them apart for their cozying upness and buddy-buddiness to the president. So all these videos surfaced of them in the locker room on speakerphone. Who knows why FBI Director Kash Patel was in there. He's in there, got the president on speakerphone. The president is glazing and telling them what heroes they are and how amazing they played. It's true. They played amazing. It was a great game. And proceeds to make a joke saying, I want you guys to come out to the White House. I want you guys to attend the State of the Union, which, as I'm recording this, was last night. And then he says, Oh, and I'll probably get impeached if I don't do this, but haha, I guess I gotta invite the women's team too. And then the men, again, they're in the locker room drinking champagne, got the goggles on, spraying champagne everywhere, celebrating their gold medal game. Bunch of 24 and 26-year-olds laugh. And you can hear it. You can hear it in the video. They laugh. And what's followed all this is just this entire team being dragged through the mud as just this big men's fraternity ish place or squad that are just a bunch of MAGA people. Now, I opened up a little bit about this on my Patreon video, so please check that out. But let me say this. I think it's important to interrogate where we're at, what our motive is from speaking up about what is right and what is wrong. I'm completely talking to myself and recognizing at times inconsistencies. My take on this is that laughing, not speaking up about what's right, not advocating for what's right in the moment, in a knee-jerk reaction moment, is not good. Not addressing misogyny in the moment is not good. Mob mentality, not good. But I don't know if it's always healthy to make assumptions so quickly. And here's what I mean. I already knew that a lot of the players, because they'd won the Stanley Cup and visited the White House already, were Trump people. And of course, I don't love that, and that bothers me, especially if they're still doubling down in light of what's been going on lately this past year. But I'll say this. Most of the team did end up going to the White House, and it's documented. There's pictures of them attending the State of the Union, blah, 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 all that. But what we do see is I think about 5 to 6 players didn't go and they were missing. And so I think that's relevant because by just hearing a locker room full of people laughing, it completely disregards the possibility of, hey, maybe there are people that we can't tell who weren't laughing and who actually already plan to not go to the White House. Okay. I think it's just, I think it's healthy to not want your reason for speaking up to be anger or to always just looking for a way to ruffle feathers or to pick a side or talk about how your side is right about everything. I need to hear this. I don't want to be that either. And what's the worst that could happen if you have that mentality, right? I think it's okay to pump the brakes and say that really sucks. That's unfortunate that they're laughing, that they are overwhelmingly buddy with the president, if that offends you. But there's plenty of time to see, oh, okay, well, actually was right mostly, but hats off to these guys that didn't end up going. Also, at the time of me recording this, the women's team also rejected their invitation to go too, and that was their prerogative as well, and that's fine. I say all that because I just want, I think, I'm speaking from my own experience, we will exhaust ourselves. We will not have anything left if we just look how to be mad and how to, frankly, how to cancel people for fun. Okay. Look, I'm not advocating for everyone to start watching the NHL now. I'm really not. I do got to be consistent with what I know and how I act. As y'all know, I do not rock with the NFL. There's too much overt racism, explicitly racist language in their bylaws from the beginning, from the higher ups. There's too many overtly racist issues in the NFL that just continue to get perpetuated by us viewing NFL games, and I don't rock with it. Is that inconsistent with me kind of saying, hey, I think we're judging these USA hockey players too quickly, too swiftly? Maybe. And I think that's okay. I'm willing to interrogate that and think about that moving forward. I say all this because I want this space to be edifying. I want us to learn and grow in our understanding of when to speak up, how to speak up, and on what we should be speaking up about. Okay. I think it matters on what our heart is behind this stuff. I don't think we lose anything by prioritizing being consistent versus always worrying about being on the right or wrong side of things. Look, hopefully, this is all making sense as far as how I'd say to view the USA men's hockey team and what their prerogative has been in all these interviews since their loss. I will also say that I think that they are understanding the consequences, for better and for worse, of them, doubling down in the support for this administration. A lot of the celebratory things, I think, are getting tainted a lot, and that's their decision. Really, they didn't have to do this, but they are, and I think they're okay with it. Like I said, many of them have already been in the White House plenty of times because they won the Stanley Cup and met President Trump. So, I think there's also that. All right. Look, last thought here on the Olympics. I think that more than any other sporting event, the Olympics are and have been historically just a perfect example, not even just from overt protesting, but a perfect example of how sports and politics are intertwined forever. You cannot separate them. So I'll be honest, it's frustrating for me when people say, can we just keep politics out of this? Sports are inherently political, right? They're inherently political. And so I think the Olympics is always a fantastic and entertaining way to see how this is true. You'll see countries competing against each other in sports that they have high political conflict within their own countries or against other countries. And I think there's something unique about this time where there's the mix between unity, yet maybe a lot of tension at times as we're watching athletes play games. I thoroughly always enjoy the Olympics. One last thing on DEI, I really did not look into this much, but in my skimming through watching some of the events one day, I just thought it was a shame, but also just interesting. I saw the Jamaican bobsled team. I don't know if they won anything, but they finished their run, and it was something historic that there was a Jamaican bobsled team. Of course, I'm thinking of the movie Cool Runnings that I grew up with on Disney, about the Jamaican bobsled team. And then right after that, I saw our own USA men's bobsled team absolutely fumble their run right after that. And they only got one person in the sled, and then three other people fell. I say all that. I cannot help. I'm just going to keep it 100 with you guys. I can't help but think about the DEI conversation, right? You got the USA, who are the most equipped, maybe even favored in the bobsledding, literally fumble, not get into the sled, and then you got the Jamaican bobsled team, at least finishing the run and doing a good job. All right, I don't want to be a dead horse. I could keep talking about all this. Hopefully this is helpful. Please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. Thank you guys for listening. Please visit patreon.com/racially speaking to support this show, and I'll be back with you guys next time. Thank you guys. Peace.
Life in 3 dimensions got me bent and got me twisted. I know I done said a lot, but I should probably stop pretending. I don't really hold the key and I can't really push a button. I just step up to the mic and try my very best to bust it, but I ran out of breath. It's tight in my chest, my feet just might fail. I can't stand up pressure. The nightmare might scare you, no worse than reality. They hunt you by day, R.I.P. Ahmaud Arbery. Everybody got a time, but that's less than comforting. I hope I'm alive by the time they choose to comfort me. Mosquitoes in the vein, or leeches on my soul. This money on my mind is a fracture in my bones. You get crippled by continuing existence like a ghost. And they wonder why we drink, and they wonder why we smoke, and they wonder why we think that everything's a joke. I'm shocked that we can sleep, must be the thought of letting go. I'm fed up with the valley. Now I lay me down to sleep, I'm fed up with the valley. Now I lay me down to sleep, I'm fed up.